In today's MTD CNC Tech Corner, I have Rodney from Langley Alloys, and we're going to talk a little bit about Fermonic 60 and also who Langley Alloys are and how they can help you. Now, Rodney, before we get into Langley Alloys, let's go through Fermonic 60. What is it and what is it used for?
It's not a widely used alloy, it's relatively niche, and that's because it has effectively a superpower, a special power. It's not hugely corrosion resistant. The corrosion resistance is slightly less than a more commodity grade like 316. It's not massively high strength, it's reasonably high strength, but there are other alloys that are way stronger. However, its special property is its ability to resist something called galling. Now you're thinking, what on earth is galling?
Well, I am, yes.
And why should I be bothered about it? Well, galling is a tendency for metal parts to effectively bind or stick together, particularly if they've been exposed for a long time under very high loads. So you could imagine a part that's been left open or left closed for several years, and all of a sudden it needs to actuate, but too late, it's galled. The metal parts have effectively sort of binded or micro welded together, and you can't open or close it or shift the stem, whatever it is you need to do. And that's a big problem. So all of a sudden you've got an immediate failure the one time you needed to use that piece of equipment. So a metal that resists galling or sticking is very useful. So you'll typically use it as one half of a couple or a pair with a different metal to avoid that sticking. So think about applications such as connectors or couplings, or another common one for this grade apart from valves would be dry brake couplings, where you have hoses pumping chemicals or fuel, and if the hose was to break or snap, you need to cut off the flow instantly. So those sort of couplings are going to be sitting there for several years and then need to operate with 100% security and peace of mind. So you'll use Fermonic 60 as part of the combination of alloys to avoid that sticking or welding.
And I like how you said that you'd use it as part of other alloys. You wouldn't just use this alloy on its own. Now, this alloy's got something in it I did not expect, which is silicon.
Yep.
Why has it got silicon in it, and how does that help its properties?
So, silicon is one of those elements in the witch's brew of making different metals that is not so widely used. Sometimes you may put it into castings to make the metals easier to flow and pour and cast, but that's not the case here because these are forged bars. You might put it into certain grades which are used in fertilizer production, where they resist the chemicals that are used around urea and fertilizer manufacture. But again, that's not the case here. But putting 3 or 4% of silicon in gives you this really strong sort of matrix within the metal that resists components joining or sticking together. So it's an unusual recipe or composition, and it's an unusual physical property that's pretty much unique to this metal.
Now, Rodney, that leads us on nicely into the other videos we've done on the other materials you've brought in, like your Inconels and your super duplexes, which you can find all those videos on our website, but also shows your knowledge and expertise on these materials and other materials you do. So what is it about Langley Alloys that sets you apart from other material suppliers, not just in the UK, but around the world?
That would be a proud boast to pull off, but there are lots of facets of our business that we've designed or put together specifically to add value, whether that's knowledge, advice or guidance. I'm a metallurgist by qualification, not a very good one, but fortunately I'm not the only one. So I'm one of 4 people with a formal metallurgical qualification in the business, which would be quite high for a steel company, but for a distributor that's a pretty impressive starting point. We've got some very experienced and knowledgeable staff. We've got inspection and testing capabilities in-house. Our whole system is designed around handling difficult specifications. So a customer will come on with a requirement. I think we've got something like more than 2,000 specifications already pre-vetted and preloaded into our stock control system. So people struggling for material, they'll come to us and they'll have all of these additional requirements, and chances are all of that knowledge, information, specifications in the system will come together, green light it, and a piece of metal will be out the door in a couple of days' time without too much stress and heartache.
And another thing I'd like to get across for the viewers at home is they can actually come to you for requirements as well, and for knowledge. So if they've got a part they need to make but don't know what material to make it out of, you have the expertise to look at that project and then assist with choosing the right material. Am I right?
Pretty much, yeah. Most of our inquiries are straightforward, transactional enough. People know exactly what they need, and it's just a case of, have you got the size and how much is it going to cost me? But those more unusual inquiries where it's, I used to use this, I'd like to substitute that, what would you recommend for this application? They're the more interesting ones. Taxing a little bit your experience and your knowledge, and pulling people together to come up with a better answer. And sometimes the answer's around the choice of metal. Sometimes it's about how best to make the part. Is it from a solid bar? Is it from plate? Is it from pipe? Is it pre-machined? You're looking at ways of trying to simplify or make the supply chain more efficient. So there's different angles, but those questions are certainly more interesting.
And there's one last point I want to get across before we finish this is, you're not just a material distribution centre. There's something you guys have done, be it a while ago, that a lot of people might not realise, that you actually invented a type of steel. So tell me a little bit about that.
We're an interesting company, or a company with an interesting backstory. So we've been going more than 80 years. In the beginning we were inventing and making alloys, and perhaps 15-20 years ago we decided to focus much more around distribution. The company changed shape and structure over that time. So we have a very clear focus now on distribution, but our history and our playbook brings with it a whole load of trademarked alloys and knowledge and experience that is pretty unique for a metals distributor.
And that, I think, is the perfect way to finish this video, is that you are unique. You have the background, the knowledge, and it's the same old saying is, you've been there and done it. You're not just telling people what to do, you've been there and done it. So if anybody at home would like more information on any of the materials we've spoke around in any of the 12 podcasts we've done, or need advice on choosing the next material for their project, how do they get in contact with you guys at Langley Alloys?
The easiest way of finding our contact details is go online. Hopefully you'll find the langleyalloys.com website pretty easily. But we've got offices in the UK and the US, which means there's somebody sitting at a desk to answer the phone, answer an email, answer the web chat 18 hours a day, and hopefully we'll give you a good answer and some decent advice.
Well, Rodney, from me and all of us here at MTD CNC, thank you for your time, and thank you for coming into the Tech Corner today.
You're welcome.